really good to see you both this morning. Thank you for joining me. Where are you both watching in from or connecting in from today? Where are you? Mel, where are you based?
I'm near Sheffield, just inside the Peak District.
Brilliant stuff. Welcome from just inside the Peak District near Sheffield. Great to see you. Tim, where about you?
I'm based in Southampton, so right on the south coast of England. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's just dive straight in. I'd love to hear a bit about your experiences. You've got a huge amount of experience connecting with people online and planting churches and that sort of stuff. But love to just launch straight in, thinking about what your learnings. This is part of what we're trying to do over these few days, is gain perspective from each other, hear from each other, learn from each other. What have you learned about doing church online over the last few years? What some of your top learnings, your key learnings? Mel, let me ask you first.
So I went into this, Matt, not feeling like an expert on anything to do with digital or tech. And my 17-year-old gave me my main piece of key learning, which is, Mum, you might not feel confident with media, but you're very social. And so I think that's my main takeaway is it's not just about the digital stuff, but it's about how we interact online and about what we're listening to in our communities and in the digital spaces that we're walking.
Brilliant stuff, Mel. Thanks. Tim, yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I think some of the learning has been, it doesn't stand still. So often we want to try and pick something and create a model or create a method or create a way of doing things, but digital is always shifting and the platforms are always shifting. The way we engage on the platforms are always shifting. And so I think there's an element of don't be afraid to try something out, just try something new, see what sticks. If it sticks, then keep doing it. But if it doesn't seem to stick, don't stress over this big idea that you got really excited about, move on to the next thing, try something new. It's so fast paced and it's constantly moving. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, if people don't know your stories, but tell us a bit about why you started leading church communities online. What precipitated the context? Was it something you've been planning for a long time? Was it something that was just more? Tell us a bit about that. Mel, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I was doing some study. I was doing some research, and I was researching a digital media and personhood. And at the same time, so we're always affected by our environment, aren't we? And my husband works with computers, and he was asking questions about what does learning look like online. So this is back in Christmas 2020, so before the pandemic hit. And so I was going, oh, how does being in community online affect who we are, and what would church look like online? How would a sermon be presented different, and how would we pray together differently? And he was asking similar questions about learning online. So we went, what if we just tried some stuff out? And so it was like all that double listening of what was going on in our work life and in our church life and generally in society, and basic curiosity and nosiness of what if, that kind of set us on this path to develop something on social media.
Had you got experience already of building stuff online in terms of groups or Facebook groups or anything like that, Mel, before? Or was this like a natural evolution of what you'd already been interested in, or was this a new phenomenon for you?
Not digitally. So I'm a pioneer priest as well. So I have a natural curiosity of pushing boundaries and trying to what if, asking all those what if questions and double listening and stuff. But not online. It's completely new territory, and I still don't feel like an expert. And I'm only 3 years in, so.
There's always more to learn. That's absolutely right. But really excited to learn from you, Mel, and because you have a huge amount of experience under your belt from the last few years. So, Tim, similarly, but how about you? Is this something that you've been planning for a while? Was it a bit more reactive, responsive to the context?
Yeah, I don't. It was always a part of the plan. So for us, the journey was in 2019. We were. Our youth ministry at church was growing, and we were praying into what was next. And so we came into 2020 with this real vision to plant a youth church, a congregation that was open to everyone, and seeing it more like a church plant than like another service or activity or event. but the heart of it was reaching young people. And so I think digital and using social media was always a part of that story, as engaging with young people is. The pandemic hitting, I think we launched properly as Youth Church Weekly in January of 2020. So we had a couple of months at running it in person, and then suddenly the rug was pulled out, as it was for everyone, and things pivoted very quickly. So, but what was really fascinating is in that early phase before the pandemic, as we were thinking through what does this look like and what are the ways we're going to do this, one of the words that kept coming back up was this idea of disruption. And in the way that what we see in industry, Airbnb, Amazon, Deliveroo, Uber, like they disrupt their industry. And so this word of disruption was quite interesting as we were planning Youth Church. And what struck me midway through the pandemic, after this season of being solely digital, was the way that the thing that all those companies have in common is their use of digital media to disrupt the industry they're a part of and bring about innovative change. So that felt quite critical and quite, interesting that God had led us through this season of being really focused online and digital. Yeah.
Just interested in the way that you both employed different models in terms of connecting with your communities. Mel, I understand it's more of a Facebook page and group and building community that way. Tim, YouTube and Reels, Instagram and elsewhere. Just love to hear a bit about what you've learned through using those different modes of engaging with communities. Maybe some of the opportunities, some of the benefits, but maybe some of the challenges, and potentially how things have evolved for you over the last couple of years as well. Tim, would you carry on?
Yeah, ours have evolved massively. I think initially, our youth ministry in terms of small groups, we did on Zoom through the pandemic, but we started Youth Church in terms of a service as a live stream on YouTube. And part of the reason for the choice of platform was our community is 11 to 18-year-olds. That's our key audience and demographic. And so to choose a social media platform like Facebook or Instagram would alienate the younger end. Most social media platforms, you have to be 13 plus in order to be on them. We know that some young people are on them before that, but YouTube felt like a more open public platform that we could do the live streaming to. There was massive advantages to that. It was really easy to get up and running. But the downside is it's very one way. You can't have the same interaction often that you can have on a Facebook Live or other platforms as well. So one of the things we tried really hard when we were doing our YouTube live streams was to always have dialogue. Often you see live streams where it's one person speaking. And yes, there was points where we had kind of a monologue talk, but we did some talks where it was dialogue and we had two hosts talking through the passage together. And whenever there was a response sort of time on our live streams, we tried to have two hosts kind of unpicking what was said between them. And that kind of creates a bit of dialogue. But it shifted loads. We did that all the way through the pandemic. When we came back in person, and like a lot of churches approach something like a hybrid model where we think, right, we'll have people in the room and we'll do a live stream. For us, we dropped the live stream quite quickly, partly because the majority of our audience were now no longer at home, they were in the room. And so there wasn't actually that many people watching the live stream week on week. But the other thing is we were finding it was becoming a barrier for our community to be involved in church every day. So for a young person to come up the front and be in the worship band or be involved in the service suddenly was a parental consent issue, a GDPR issue, but also they were like, if my mates at college see me, I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about that. So for those reasons, prioritizing our community, we dropped the live stream. But what we found took off quite quickly was short form video stuff. This was as TikTok was huge by this point, but Reels were just starting to hit Instagram. So we started basically doing a 1 minute kind of sermon. We'd film it immediately after our church service, our youth church service. We'd film a 1 minute sort of talking head video. And they got a huge amount of reach on our Instagram, probably 10 times the number of followers. We had 10 times views as there are followers on our Instagram account, which to us was just kind of mind blowing. So the reach was just incredible, and the impact, given that, we went from live streaming a 1 hour service to posting a 1 minute video, and the reach was incredibly different. So,
Tim, fascinating to hear that. Mel, how about from your end?
Yeah, it's evolved. It's and partly that is to do with capacity of the team. So I was listening to Tim saying we did, and so basically our social media it operates from just 5 of us in a team, a core team, and then there's a few people out of that ripple effect. So we're not a physical church that is, I mean, I belong to a physical church, but New Skins Online isn't a physical church that is then trying to enter into the digital world. We literally set it up on digital. So a lot of it, we're going, what is manageable for our team to do? How can we interface with digital and online that is not a massive arduous task, so that this church actually becomes part of our life? And when I've got my phone in my hand and I'm walking the dog, how does that translate? How can people share in my discipleship as I'm walking, and that kind of stuff? We panicked a little bit as we were listening to people in the pandemic talk about we use the words presentation and participation, and to be a real community online, you need to get people involved. And it'd be really, really lovely if all that happened in a neat patch. But what we found is that our patch might be Facebook, our patch might be just one platform, but then that is a lot of presentation. And then the participation goes on through other Facebook pages or people messaging or through WhatsApp groups. So it's not quite as neat because it's the kind of thing, would you only say hello to somebody if they were in your physical church building? No, you would say hello to them if they were at the shop as well and you bumped into them. So it's kind of going, where are the other places that people exist, and how can we grapple with that participation in other areas of what as well? So we've kind of stopped worrying that people click and scroll or like or whatever, because we've got plenty of participation going on in other areas. And I think that's the building relationship bit that we've seen.
That's very interesting. I like those terms, presentation and participation. I think there's I know there's been a lot of thinking going on behind your projects and initiatives, but also more broadly as well. And I think one of the conversations that's been going on the last couple of years is it church online or is it online church? Can you have a digital church only? Does there always need to be a physical expression? I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts around that? Because it strikes me from your stories there is some element of a physical together with the digital. What's your take on it? Where do you land on it?
I think go on, you go, Mel.
I was just going to say that a lot of the people that follow or like or are part of our community, all of those are embedded in physical relationships. So I'm in my 40s now, and I haven't seen people from school for 20 odd years. And some of the people that are in our community are people that I went to school with, but it's still embedded in that physical relationship. And other people in our group as well have seen. So I'll go to the group, this person's now joined, and do you know them? And quite often the answer is yeah, or there's some physical traceable link through the people that are joining us online. I would also say, just going back to your last question, Matt, I know we're told to do one thing and do one thing well, but because of the physical relationships that we bump into, whether that be through my work with Church Army or through my work at a Bible college or through my work in parish, people go, 17, 18-year-olds go to me, well, I haven't seen anything on social media, and it's because they're on a different platform. So we've found concentrating on one platform and dabbling in others and just dropping things in gives us a bit more of a presence in other places, but we still have that concentration. So yeah, in terms of physical, which was your actual question, yeah, most of ours are traceable in some way.
Very interesting. Yeah. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think for us, definitely in our context, it's come out of a physical community that we've then been using digital as a way to engage and reach further. But I think, for a long time in youth ministry, we've been talking about this blur between digital and physical. And the pandemic has caused the church to suddenly be talking about it a lot more as well. But, the best example I can point to, because I think for young people, the lines are so blurred. I remember probably 5 or 6 years ago now, overhearing a conversation of a group of young people, and they were talking about the football that was happening the night before. And they were talking about this football game that happened and how so-and-so scored this goal. And did you see so-and-so? Oh, and did you see so-and-so's pace is up to 98 and their striker speed is down to 64. And I suddenly was very confused. I was like, what are they talking about? That they were switching between, and what was happening was the FIFA video game live updates to the Premier League games. And so as the team performs well in the Premier League, their stats will get boosted on the game for a week, and players' individual stats go up and down. But for them, they were interchangeably going between a physical conversation about a real life football game and then the digital video game that they were playing as well. And the way they were going between the two was seamless. And so I think some of it is that we have to change our thinking about physical and digital. For people today, you know, our smartphones are an extension of our beings now more than ever before. And to try and separate the two starts to become even more nonsensical. I think the other thing I'd say as well is that like we found some real advantages in creatively thinking through real hybrid models of doing things, rather than just thinking purely about how do we do this physically, how would we do this digitally, thinking about the hybrid from the beginning. So we ran an event a year before last. So that as we're sort of coming out of the pandemic, when we were in these kind of weird phases of coming through the different unlocking kind of seasons, we ran an event that we live streamed some content, but 2 youth groups. So it wasn't like 100 young people on Zoom in their own rooms. It was 10 churches with their youth group gathered around a screen, able to watch some sort of streamlined content from us, but able to have discussions with their youth leader and with their youth group. And as a format, that worked really well, but was a kind of inventive, strange collaboration of the digital and physical together. So I think sometimes we get stuck in this idea of digital or physical, but there's some real creativity in the in-between and in the blur and the hybrid.
So good. Really, really helpful to be thinking about this. Also, just thinking about how you, what encouragements have you seen personally over the last couple of years? I don't know if one example comes to mind. I guess the question is, are we seeing people built up in the faith, coming to faith? What's been your experience through the way that you've been connecting with people? Mel, do you want to?
I think we've just experienced our late Queen's passing, and in a similar way, what New Skins has managed to do for people is just give their faith a place to go, a place to explore faith. So I wouldn't say we've seen massive conversions, but I would say that we've planted a lot of seeds, and we've brought to the surface faith as a theme, and people questioning where that belongs as part of their life and with their stories. So it's a real encouragement to me. We had one guy connecting to us who had moved to England from Fiji, and he was desperately hoping to join the army so that he could be educated. And so we travelled that journey with him through prayer and scripture, and he got into the army, and he's very, very happy and connected with his family and stuff. And so now we get his family pictures and that kind of thing. But we wouldn't have been able to support him in prayer and in other ways had we not been online and been walking those paths.
Brilliant stuff. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think we've seen some exciting stuff where we know that it's impacting our community's faith in the week, that we know they're engaging with the content, they're watching the content. But we're also hearing stories of, we have a line in our vision statement that's, so our vision is to reach young people across Southampton, to raise them up as followers of Jesus, and to release them as influencers of culture. And this idea of releasing as influencers of culture feels really integrated into our digital strategy in lots of ways. But we're seeing that happen where young people are being so discipled in their faith. We're starting to see them share, and we know they're sharing some of the content we're putting out with their friends. So that's been hugely exciting. Just last week, one of our young people invited 2 of his mates from school and kind of introduced them to his small group. And so we know that what we put out on social media, particularly for our community of young people, becomes the shop window. It's often what their friends will see first before they set foot into a physical kind of relationship with us.
We're coming to the end of our conversation. One final question to you both, though, and there'll be people watching this that are building community, whether that's seeking to plant a church or connect with young people in their community or elsewhere. Any tips, maybe 1 or 2 things that you would say are essential for anyone looking to grow or build an online community? Tim, what would you say?
I think I would be saying just try stuff out. Don't be afraid to take a punt on something. I think we're seeing short form video being super powerful. Doesn't have to be super polished. It can just be real and authentic is often more powerful. But also in terms of conversation and connection, so much of social media becomes about a broadcast. But using those direct messages, using comment threads, all that sort of stuff can actually, although it might not look like a lot on the surface, can build so much depth in a community.
Brilliant, Tim. Mel?
Yeah, I don't think you need loads of equipment and tech to be able to do it. Just a smartphone, if you have, I mean, as I say, just a some people don't have that, but just a smartphone or a laptop or anything will do. As Tim said, be authentic. So don't worry about necessarily your house being tidy, because Jesus will speak through that to some people. And double listening. So my daughter brought home something from school to do with mental health the other day, and now we're going to use that as a theme on our next lot of topics. So that sense of connecting in with what's happening in your patch physically, carry that through to the digital as well, and just be real.
Excellent stuff. Love to point people your way if people want to follow up and see New Skins and Highfield Youth as well. Where can they find you both? Mel, where should we direct them?
You can find New Skins Church on Facebook. We are on Instagram, but that's more of a dabble than anything else. Yeah. Thanks,
Mel. How about Tim?
Yeah, we're Highfield Youth YTH on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I think we're on Facebook. We don't use it a lot. But we're also, you can find us at youthchurch.co.uk. That's spelt without the vowels. So YTHCHRCH.co.uk.
It's been so good to spend this time with you this morning. Tim Taylor, Mel Hartley, thank you so much for giving us your time. And if you're watching this today or later on, do connect with these guys. Really see these some amazing examples of how these communities are reaching out to their wider community and context. God bless you both. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.